Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners, to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, brought to you by our friends over at Briar Greaves Insurance. Protecting your assets starts with a company that you can count on. So whether it's auto, homeowners, flood, boaters, or business insurance, there's nobody, and I mean nobody, better in the business to work with than the great people over at Briar Greaves Insurance. For more information about them, visit their website, briargreavesinsurance.com, or give them a call at 813-876-4166. That's 813-876-4166. And make sure you give Briar Greaves Insurance a call. See how they can help you with your insurance needs. Because if you do, and you have a convo with our good people at Briar Greaves Insurance, you will automatically be entered into a raffle to win free tickets in the lower bowl section of Raymond James Stadium for the Bucs versus Falcons game on Thursday Night Football in December. It's also the creamsicle game. So just give Briar Greaves Insurance a call and be entered into a pretty sweet raffle. We're talking tickets in the lower bowl for Bucs versus Falcons, the creamsicle jersey. Everyone will be rocking it. So give Briar Greaves Insurance a call. It is a Thursday edition of the Pewter Report podcast. We spoke with Josh Grizzard today, spoke with George Edwards, a couple players in the locker room, and we're going to spend today talking about a lot more of Bucs Patriots and how the Bucs offense can get back on track against a tough opponent with New England coming up on Sunday. So a lot of stuff to get into. Appreciate everybody rocking and rolling with us this afternoon. I'm your host, Matt Matera, and joined with me is my fellow colleague at pewterreport.com, our resident BA, Bailey Adams, returns to the show. Bailey, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for joining. How we doing, my man?
It's good to be back. We had the BA on the show last week, so I felt like I had to make my return and kind of restake my claim as our BA here at Pewter Report.
Yes, very fitting that you are back. We had a fantastic conversation with Bruce Arians last week. Cannot recommend it enough. And we had another fantastic conversation with Chucky himself, John Gruden, which was on Monday's podcast. A ton of fun. Really enjoyed getting to chat with Coach Gruden. And Bailey, you got to chat with Coach Gruden up close and personal in his office in Tampa a little bit ago before the season. What do you remember about being there, chopping it up with Coach? Obviously, Scott had an interview that you were filming with John Gruden as well. But, yeah, tell us a little bit about that. I know it was a while ago, but just kind of reminiscing.
Yeah. I think what I remember, I don't want to say the most because it was a surreal experience getting to go talk with John Gruden in his office. But one of the things I remember most is like recording that interview between Scott and John Gruden and how dark it was in that room and how poorly the videos came out as far as the visibility there. But it did give a little bit of an insight into where we were at. And it was, he was in there. We got there, I think, around 7:30 in the morning. And, Coach Gruden had already been in there for a few hours watching some film on the Falcons, doing some prep and stuff. He had a Falcons-Bucs game from last year up on the screen. And, I mean, it was just cool talking to him, getting to listen to his thoughts on the Bucs, on the state of the NFL, on pretty much everything. We covered a lot, in that short time we were there. And, he showed us around the building. He's got a Bucs room with all his Bucs memorabilia and stuff. He's got obviously a Raiders room. He had a room with a bunch of guitars in it. It was a pretty cool spot that he's got over there for the FFCA.
That's interesting. I didn't know he had guitars in there. I know he's a big AC/DC fan. He was wearing that hat the other day, but maybe that's where the shred line came from. He's like, I love to shred guitar, man. The same way I love shredding these referees.
I don't know if it was the same kind of collection that Jim Irsay had. I know that's been a hot topic lately. He's getting ready to sell, or his estate's getting ready to sell and auction off those guitars, but still a pretty impressive collection that he had in there.
Yeah, very, very cool. And thanks again to Coach Gruden for coming on the show. We got a lot of great feedback about it. Thanks to everyone for watching. It was a ton of fun, and it seems like everybody enjoyed it as well. So just want to put in that little anecdote as well. But it's a big week for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers coming out of the bye. I mean, they're not really getting a tomato can in this first game to ramp themselves up before the Bills and the Rams the following week, 2 weeks from now on Sunday Night Football. And it's funny because before the season started, you think, all right, well, New England, they weren't good last year. Drake May, what is he going to be? And now all of a sudden, Patriots aren't just a good team. They're tied for the best record in the AFC and really all of football. So we'll get into that matchup. Before we do, though, Bailey, just kind of give me your thoughts about how you feel about the state of the Bucs right now. Again, coming out of the bye, your overall viewpoints of them with this 6-2 record.
Yeah, I think they've done obviously a fantastic job of getting to 6-2 up to this point, especially when you consider all of the injuries. But 6-2 ties their best start in franchise history. They've done it 4 times before, all of which turned into very, very good seasons for them. So maybe that's a bit of a good sign for them. But I think coming out of the bye, I'm still a little concerned with the state of this team as far as the injuries are concerned. I was hoping for better news, I think, out of the bye for Chris Godwin Jr. and Bucky Irving in particular. It's good to see Luke Gedeke back out there and feel pretty good about potentially the chances of him coming back on Sunday. But I mean, it's tough when you're without your starting running back, and Rachaad White's done a decent job. But when you get Gedeke back, you would think that would do a lot for the run game, and it would do even more for the run game to have both Gedeke and Bucky back. So you hope that if it's not this week, they're back at practice, that it's next week, and that those two guys in particular are able to come back soon. Same with Hassan Reddick. I mean, over on the defensive side of the ball. So still some concerns on the injury front, but this is a tough 3-game stretch. It lightens up a little bit down the stretch after this, but you've got to do what you can to fight your way through this stretch.
Yeah, it's good that Luke Gedeke looks like he's going to return. I mean, he was limited in practice yesterday. We'll probably get the injury report at some point while the show is going on today, like we typically do when the Bucs are playing an East Coast team. So that's a huge boost because Charlie Heck has done a solid job for sure, but we're talking about Luke Gedeke, one of the better offensive tackles in the league. And with Bucky still out, and I find it hard to believe he's just going to show up on Friday and be like, all right, guys, I know we just had a full week off and I've been out the last 3 weeks or whatever it was, but I just needed 2 more days to get fully ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of see that with Chris Godwin Jr. as well. As good and exciting as this team has been, and offensively, I mean, Baker Mayfield was in the MVP conversation. That has since cooled off because of subpar performances by the offense over the last 2 games. But as exciting as this offense has been, it also kind of feels like a little bit like they've still yet to fully get off the ground because it's been like, okay, you have Mike Evans, Bucky, and Emeka Egbuka. And then it turns into, okay, well, you're not going to have Mike Evans, but we'll bring you Chris Godwin Jr. And then it's like, all right, well, now you're not going to have him, Bucky Irving. And now you're not going to have Bucky, Mike, and Chris Godwin Jr. And it's like each week it's like, okay, who's going to be the featured guest? Now Emeka Egbuka is the featured guest with, kind of an assembly of Rachaad White and Tez Johnson and all these other, side characters and very important players on this team. If I were to ask you out of the, let's assume, I know what they say about assume, they say don't. But let's say that Luke Gedeke is going to come back this game or maybe the following game because he's not even running on his own. He's going full throttle with the team. And Tristan Wirfs is downright giddy today talking about Luke Gedeke being back.
Could tell.
Tristan isn't always the best, secret holder, which is good for the media. But if I were to say who do the Bucs need back more between Bucky Irving, Chris Godwin Jr., and Hassan Reddick, who would you take out of those 3?
I think I would say Bucky Irving, with all respect to Rachaad White, because he does so much good for this offense. It's his pass protection, his receiving ability. He could run the ball too. But I think there's something missing from this Bucs offense when Bucky Irving's not in the game. Just his shiftiness, elusiveness, and his ability to turn nothing into something is something they haven't really had in the run game since his injury. And when you look at the other positions, like I know you probably can't count on NFC Defensive Player of the Week performances from Anthony Nelson every week, but he is a solid fill-in guy, and you would think that he will continue to do a good job on that end, and until Reddick gets back, of course, he will become the starter again. But and then with Godwin, like Chris Godwin Jr., as much as he's done in his career, this year obviously has not been a factor. Even in the 2 games that he played, it was clear that he was kind of still getting his feet back underneath him. And I think the receivers, to a large extent, have done a good job, in his absence. Obviously, Emeka has become a star right off the bat, but Tez Johnson's doing well. Sterling Shepard has been a godsend for this team, really. And then Cade Otton has started to produce in the passing game a bit more in recent weeks. So I think it would be Bucky, and obviously the cop-out answer would be they would love to have all 3 back. But, if I'm picking one, it'd be Bucky.
Yeah, I think it has to be. I mean, I didn't want to be disrespectful to Hassan Reddick, but you look what Anthony Nelson did, and it's nah, put him back on the bench. We don't need that type of production. Anthony Nelson outscored the New Orleans Saints, the Tampa Bay Nelsons, the Tampa Bay Nellies. That'd be a good London team, what it was, Family Guy. There was the London Silly Nannies back in the day. But the answer has to be Bucky Irving, just because Chris Godwin Jr. didn't totally look himself even before the injury. When returning from his first injury with the dislocated ankle. And I think what we kind of forgot about Bucky this season, because we know how great he is as a runner and a tackle breaker and all these different things, but he really stepped up his game as a receiving running back as well. I mean, the big catch and run for 22 yards against the Texans in week 2. You can even go a week before the touchdown he scored against the Falcons. That was a passing play to Bucky. Then I know they lost the game, but the big 70-plus yard catch and run against the Eagles, he's just found different ways to impact the game positively for Tampa Bay. So I think the answer has to be Bucky Irving, but at the same time, it's how do the Bucs get production from other guys outside of just Emeka Egbuka? Because now Egbuka is going to be, the top dog, the main guy that defenses, and this week the New England Patriots are going to key in on, because if you kind of take Emeka Egbuka out of the game, I don't know. I don't really know what I don't see Tez Johnson being all right, guys, put everything on me. I'm going to take us to the win in this one. So I don't know. How do you kind of view that?
It definitely becomes a by committee thing. And I actually, right before we started this podcast, I just got on and I got done finishing one of my other previews, the what to watch for tomorrow. Yeah. And I think I even made that same point, is that they're going to key in on Emeka Egbuka, and they're going to say, hey, if you're going to beat us, you're going to have to beat us with Tez Johnson, Sterling Shepard, Cade Otton, Rachaad White. And those guys are all solid players, but you're going to take your chances with that over, what Emeka has been able to do so far this year. So as a defense, he is going to be your primary concern. And then if you're the Bucs, if you can't get him, they've still been trying to find ways to target. I think he's gotten 8 or 9 targets almost every week at this point. But if that's what happens, and that he's limited, by their scheme or whatever it is, you're going to have to ask Tez Johnson to step up. You're going to have to ask more from Sterling Shepard. You're going to need the tight ends to play well. You're going to need, a guy like Ryan Miller to come up and make a play. And, I'm probably forgetting somebody else too. But it becomes a by committee thing. And if you're an opposing defense, you would much rather take the by committee than you would Egbuka.
Yeah, I just wonder why they haven't fully gotten – and credit has to go to, the opponents they've played. Obviously the Lions are – a really damn good football team. But, you look at what they were able to do against the 49ers, and that was, with Emeka Egbuka missing the second half of that game. And then all of a sudden, Tez Johnson and Cameron Johnson became these exceptional players making fantastic plays. They got to find a way to tap into that a little bit more. And we'll talk about the running game in a second, too, because I think that certainly plays a factor. But I want to get to some quotes from Josh Grizzard as well, specifically talking about Emeka Egbuka, if I have it real quick. It was talking about Emeka Egbuka kind of being the new, essentially top guy, and how defenses might kind of tilt their coverage towards Emeka a little bit, but you still need to get him involved. And Josh Grizzard had to say, I think you saw that a little bit. I wouldn't say started at the Detroit game, because you even saw it against Philadelphia Eagles. But especially in the Detroit game, with the coverage rolling that way or being double teamed, where we've got to find better ways to get him the ball, even if he has the double team on him. Then, if he does have the double team, it's what we are doing for the other side of it. Because these guys should be singled up man-to-man coverage to be able to get them the rock. So that's something he'll have to adjust to based on those guys being out. Like you said, it's something he's prepared for as well, because that's the way he conducts his business. And he knows, okay, if I'm not getting this because I'm getting doubled, then it's opening up Tez Johnson or Kate Otten or whoever it might be. So that's mainly on us to try to find ways to get him the ball, even if he is getting cloud coverage or cloud safety over the top. So essentially what he's saying is, one, we still got to get him the ball in other ways. And, this isn't a foreign concept to Bucs fans, because we saw that Mike Evans for, I don't know, his entire career. So now it's just, insert Emeka Egbuka instead of Mike Evans. But yeah, it's going to come down to Tez Johnson winning some of these one-on-one battles. I'd like to see a little bit more Cameron Johnson, and Sterling Shepard has been huge for this team. But then, you look at the last two games, going against the Saints, Sterling Shepard got one catch for 8 yards, and it was on a screen pass. It wasn't necessarily like he was getting out and getting open. I think he's more of like a plug-and-play type of dude, showing up here and there. But, I don't know if you can consistently rely on Sterling Shepard the way that I think we can rely a little bit more on Tez Johnson and the other legs.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought, because Egbuka has to get used to it. I think he already is. But I think in recent weeks, it looks like his production has dipped, because it has. But I think there's been a couple times where that's been on Baker, whether it's been throwing too late or just throwing off. And a lot of times it's pressure that's forcing him to an off balance or back foot throw. But I can remember 3 or 4 times, I think, in the Detroit game, where Egbuka was open and the ball just couldn't get to him. And I think there were some cases like that against the Saints too. So, I mean, if Baker can return and kind of round back into form from the first 6 weeks of the season and start to dial that accuracy back in, I think you're still going to see Egbuka contribute, in a pretty big way, because they're still going to find ways to get him the ball. It's just they've got to get it to him.
Another thing I'm kind of concerned about for the Bucs receivers specifically, and I'm not sitting here saying the Bucs aren't going to be able to get the job done. Stay tuned for our Pewter previews tomorrow. But these corners for the Patriots are pretty damn good. Mm-hmm. One of them, have Bucs fans heard of him before? His name is Carlton Davis. He's pretty good. He's feisty and he's physical. And Christian Gonzalez, he was in concussion protocol, but he did practice full yesterday. We'll see, but he's considered one of the top young corners in the league as well. Now, Drake London had his way against Christian Gonzalez last week, which sucks that Mike Evans isn't playing. I'm not saying it's going to be a revenge game for Carlton Davis, but I don't know. Carlton Davis takes a lot of things personal, as we've seen throughout the years. And he's coming back to Tampa. I think it's his first game back in Tampa since getting traded from the Bucs. I don't know. I'd be weary of Carlton Davis kind of making an impact in this game.
The thing that I think worries me too is, and this is just, again, more anecdotal than anything, but I'm pretty sure he doesn't have an interception yet this year. And it's written for him to get that first season against his former team. Hopefully it doesn't happen for the Bucs' sake, but you can just see where that would be something that might happen. But yeah, no, this is a really good defense. And the more I've kind of done some diving into what they've done so far this year, like this, they stopped the run. They're number one against the run. I still think they're like right on the middle of the pack against the pass. They're giving up. They're not giving up that many points. They're top 10. So this is a tough defense to try to break out of this slump against, because it has not been pretty the last 2 weeks for the Bucs offense, and now they're facing a tough task coming out of the bye week. And, they had the bye week to hopefully get a little healthier. And, I know Baker's been kind of dealing with that knee issue, and I think that's been a little bit of a limiting factor in the last couple of weeks. But, this is a tough order for the Bucs to come out of the bye week against and try to get things going and put some points up on the board.
It definitely is. 3 difficult games in a row for Tampa Bay. It starts against New England, but it's a home game for the Bucs on Sunday. However, it's not the only home game for a Tampa team. There's a game tonight for your USF Bulls. Well, not everyone's USF Bulls, but most people's USF Bulls. That's right, folks. USF 18th ranked, taking on San Antonio, the Road Runners. Going up against USF on Thursday night at Raymond James Stadium. You can scan the QR code on the screen right there and still get some tickets to go to the USF game. They are rocking and rolling. Not in the college football playoff picture just yet, but if they keep winning and maybe Memphis slips, they might be able to get in there. So scan the QR code, get your tickets for the USF game today, for tonight's game against the Road Runners. Check it out at Raymond James Stadium. All right, let's talk a little bit more about this running game, because as you kind of just mentioned, tough defense for New England, one of the best at stopping the run. And so you're thinking, okay, we're gonna turn things around. We're actually going to fix it this week, and then it's like, bam, you're going against one of the best run stopping teams in the league. I want to get to some quotes from Josh Grizzard as well. Also, Graham Barden had a hilarious comment about their team as well. Let me see if I can find it real quick. I'll start with Josh Grizzard. He was talking about he was talking more about the red zone, but obviously the big thing in the red zone was the inability to run the football. So when you get the ball on the half-yard line, you need to be able to score, and generally by running it. The good teams run it in. They're able to pound people. So when it comes to that, it comes down to, one, the fundamentals and techniques and pad level and how we're hitting blocks. But then, to your point, also opening up a little bit where if it's not working, you might need to throw it. That way you can keep the guys honest, but it comes down to pad level and the want to when it comes to that, because if you get it down there that low, you got to be able to punch that thing in. And he had said earlier as well, just kind of that the run game isn't where it needs to be, but they've been able to commit to it during it at the same time. So he goes on to say, the ability for the guys that have not played much to come in here and get up to speed with what we're doing and how we're doing it, how we operate, just seeing the strides that they've been able to make from starting their first game, second game, and third game. He's talking about skill players. We're talking about the offensive line as well, because it's been a revolving door, at that right guard position. The confidence that those guys have, the things you see in practice showing up on tape, just being able to have more reps, and it's been huge. And it's huge for the offensive line. It could be for the receivers. It could be for the running backs, and just seeing those guys take steps. And then our ability to mix and match, not have the run game exactly where we want it to be right now, but trying to keep them off balance and throwing it and running it and really trying to mix those two in. So Grizzard's not going to shy away from continuing to run the football. And it almost felt like the Saints game was like a bit of an overcompensation for not running it as much against Detroit. But the Bucs aren't going to shy away from running the football. But what concerns me, and I get that, Bucky Irving isn't in the game and he's not available, is it really just the loss of Luke Gedeke and Cody Mauch that has completely dragged this down? That's the problem that I kind of have with it. It's you still had Tristan Wirfs for a majority of the season, Graham Barton, Ben Bredesen, and yet the running game looks like it did, 2 seasons ago with Dave Canales, and the year before that when they have the worst rushing attack in the league. It's almost like the Bucs have kind of gotten close to reverting back to that instead of looking like what they did a season ago, being one of the best running teams in the league.
Yeah, and I think that's what has limited this offense probably the most. I mean, the injuries are one thing, and then the last 2 weeks, maybe a little bit more inconsistent or erratic play from Baker has been a bit of a problem. But I think it all gets fixed if you're running the ball at not even necessarily top 5 levels like you were last season, but even if you're running the ball a bit better, you can feel like it's more balanced out, and you're not asking Baker to play hero ball for 4 quarters every Sunday. So I don't know what the answer is. I would like to think it is, get Luke Gedeke back in the lineup and get Bucky Irving back in the lineup, but I'm not sure. I guess we'll have to wait and see what that looks like, because again, with Cody Mauch out for the rest of the year, even when Gedeke is back, whether that's this Sunday or next or whenever, this is an offensive line that will be it'll be the first time that Gedeke is back. It will be the first time they play with even 4 out of the 5 guys that they plan to play the season with. So I think that has to do a lot with it, but I think that's a big part of the problem. But you've got to figure some things out schematically, whether it is, with Rashad, with it's getting Sean Tucker more touches, whatever the case is, they've got to figure out how to find that balance. And I think Grizzard's right to be a little bit stubborn with it and not just abandon the run, because we saw what that looked like in Detroit.
Yeah. And for the record, I don't think this offense in total looks like the Dave Canales kind of bare bones style of offense, if you will. There has been creativity. There has been different things going on. But what I will say is I do feel as if the running game in recent weeks has kind of defaulted to we're going to run it up the gut and we're going to go right between the guard. It's Mike Allstott's not in the backfield there. Gruden was like, we ran 14 smash every time, and it worked. Yeah, I get it, because it's Mike Allstott. But I think some of the most success the Bucs have had this season is when they're pulling their guards or they're pulling their tackles and kind of helping them get to the second level. And I just wonder why they haven't necessarily implemented that a little bit more. Now, that's something that Josh Grizzard isn't going to be like, you know what? We're actually going to do that this week. So I'm glad you asked while I'm up at the podium with millions of people watching and probably the opponent as well paying a little bit closer attention to it. But I think the goal line's a perfect example. I'm not mad that they ran it time and time again, because you can go back and forth. You could say, hey, mix in a pass, or hey, just get half a yard. But if you're running the same exact play, I don't know, run it to the left side then. Run it in between the guard and the tackle instead of the center and the guard. We saw in Seattle, Rachaad White could have crawled into the end zone if he wanted to when they pitched it to the outside and they sent Tristan Wirfs. That's what I'm looking for a little bit more. Whether it's a pitch, whether it's pulling a guard from the right side to the left side or vice versa. I want to see a little bit more of that, because to me, that's when the Bucs offensive line has truly been humming, even last season when they had such a great group. So, yeah, Charlie Heck is part of it a little bit. I think some poor play by Ben Bredesen. Not Ben Bredesen. By Graham Barton has been an issue as well. But I just want to see more of going with what has worked with this team in the past versus, hey, we found success on an 8-yard run up the gut. Now we're going to do that 15 more times in a row.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about it. I might have been a screen pass, and it was he ended up whiffing the block. But think about in that Lions game when Penei Sewell got out in space and was flying down the field trying to lay a lead block. You kind of think Wirfs has and can do that. And yeah, I would think getting as athletic as he is, getting him out in space and running behind him would make more sense. I wonder if part of it, and I'd have to go and look kind of back at the tape and look at some other things to see if I'm even right on thinking this could be a possibility. But we know how good of a blocker on the perimeter Chris Godwin Jr. is, and how Mike Evans can do a good job with that. And so I wonder if they're missing that a little bit as far as why they're not running to the edges as much. But I mean, it can't be enough to shut down their ability to run and run it out wide, because at a certain point, running it up the gut is not working. So you've got to go to the perimeter.
No, that's a really good point because Godwin did a lot of that, and Emeka Egbuka would block as well, but then he had that hamstring issue, which allowed him to play, and it's like, okay, well, if we're only going to get, I don't know, 70% of Emeka Egbuka, like snap-wise versus like his typical amount, well, we're not going to waste one of his snaps on him blocking when we want him to go out and run routes. And Sterling Shepard will go and block him. That's great. Tez Johnson will put his face in and get stuff done, but also Tez Johnson's the lightest player in the history of football. He's going to get tossed around. And we kind of saw that a little bit on a catch he made against the Saints in their most recent game. Ryan Miller has been another option, but I don't want the Bucs to get to the point where it's like, oh, Ryan Miller's in the game. That means odds are they're going to block. Now, obviously, he can go and catch the football, but he's not going to be your leader in receiving yards or anything like that. So I think you make a great point about missing that part of Chris Godwin's game because they do rely on their wide receivers to block a solid amount, and he hasn't been involved. So curious to see how the Bucs go and attack that in this game. Let's talk about the quarterback a little bit, shall we? Baker, Reagan, Mayfield. Like I said earlier, began the year in the MVP conversation, just coming out of the gates, firing, great games, all the comeback performances. But then he slowed down a little bit. The Detroit game was a debacle, I think, more than just kind of Baker himself. That was really the whole team more than anything else. So he slows down in that game, picks it up a little bit against the Saints, but I don't think necessarily was in the it was in exactly where he wanted to be as a starter. And so you look at the good and the bad, and the MVP level type of play was awesome, but I also don't think it's like sustainable each and every single game. Like you can't be perfect 100% of the time. It's almost impossible. It's almost like saying a horse could play baseball or something like that. So like, how do you look at Baker coming out of the bye? How does he get back to the level of play that he was at?
I wonder too. I mentioned it a little bit earlier. The knee injury that had landed him on the injury report prior to the bye week and all that. I wonder how much that's limited him in the last couple of weeks. He mentioned, I think, in his press conference how defenses have kind of just been shutting down those escape lanes for him, and then what was able to make him so successful early on in the year and getting those key yards when the lanes were there. I think that has to return to be part of his game again. And I think it's just kind of getting back to some of the basics and some of what was so successful early on this year. And it has been a revolving door, personnel wise, both on the offensive line, at wide receiver, even in the backfield. So it's been hard. And the hero level of play probably isn't sustainable, but I don't think that's the case for anybody. I mean, even the best in the game, we talk about like last year, and I was paying close attention to this a couple weeks ago because of a future I may or may not have had on Baker Mayfield for MVP. But they were talking about they put up the two stats or two games last year where Josh Allen, who went on to win the MVP, he had a couple stinks last year. So it's going to happen to everybody. And you hope for Baker it was those two games and that, he feels a little bit better going into this week and is a little bit more comfortable in the pocket and, is able to set his feet and throw and not have defenders draped all over him all day. So, I don't want to say that I've lost confidence in Baker Mayfield because that's not even close to the case. I think it's just kind of, you want to see him kind of get back to not even necessarily the superstar, like 300 yard, 3 touchdown type of games, just making the throws that we know he can make and putting the offense in good positions to win.
Yeah, I don't expect Baker to replicate essentially what he did last year, which was awesome. The 40+ touchdowns, over 4,000 yards, all that stuff. I think ideally for the Bucs, now in a perfect world, Baker is playing like he did last year or gets back to how he was like earlier in the season. Really the Seattle game, I guess is what we'll say. But realistically, I think if Baker can be somewhere between his 2022 version or 2023 version with Canales and then last year with Cohen, I think if you can find like somewhat of a medium in between those two, that'll be fine for this team as they get, help with Emeka Buka and have a much better defense. So I think that's what you got to look for with Baker Mayfield in this game.
Yeah. And I
one thing I don't want to be looking for, but it happens from time to time, is a golf ball when I am in the rough going to golf. And definitely recommend for all of you golfers out there, check out Heritage Isles. It is ranked in the top 3 best value courses in the Tampa and St. Petersburg area. Been ranked by Golf Advisor. It's a country club, but it's open to the public as well, so you could play a very, very nice course. And if you need tee times to set up your foursome or whatever, threesome, twosome, or if you're playing solo, they got it all for you. Check out Heritage Isles. You got the number 813-907-7447. That's 813-907-7447. It is golfing weather right now, folks. I cannot wait to hit the links because golf's a fun sport. Takes my mind off of football a little bit. And then I'm thinking even more about football when I'm golfing as well. Baker Mayfield golfs. I don't know. Todd Bowles definitely doesn't golf. I just have a feeling he doesn't. But Bruce Arians was a big-time golfer as well. I think Jason Light golfs as well. So check out Heritage Isles. All right, we got a couple of super chats to get to. So let's have at it. We shall start with Bucs Basement. Thank you very much for this $4.99 super chat. Says Bowles has a lot to prove still in his career. Todd Bowles is 1-5 in his career after the bye. His only win came against the awful Giants last season. What a game that was! You had Baker Mayfield doing the Tommy DeVito. You had Sean Tucker fumbling at the goal line, and I believe Sean Tucker's stat line was like 3 carries for 4 yards and a touchdown. Because I remember I spot started him in fantasy football that week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. And it's we talked about it earlier, what a tough test this turned out to be coming out of the bye weeks. I think even when the schedule came out, it was kind of like, all right, out of the bye, they kind of get a game against the Patriots at home, which should be manageable. And then they have those 2 tough back-to-back games in Buffalo and in LA against the Rams. And now that's turned into a tough 3-game stretch. So, They did a good job to get to 6-2. They avoided the October slump that plagued them the last couple of years, but you can't let that then become a November slump. You can't let it kind of get pushed back by a few weeks or by a month. And they got to finish strong, and it starts on Sunday.
I like what Yaya Diaby said. We had a Zoom press conference with him earlier in the week, and he said that Coach Bowles' message to everybody was, don't be that team. Don't be that team that comes out sluggish out of the bye, because there was a reference to the Lions had lost in their game over the weekend to the Vikings. They had come out of the bye, and Dan Campbell, their head coach, had said that he felt that they were slow and they weren't as prepared as they could be. So that was a good talking point for Todd Bowles to his team. So I don't think they will be sluggish out of the bye. Also, if you're looking at his whole career, going back to the Jets, I don't know how applicable that is for these Bucs teams. But I hear what you're saying. Like, to me, I think what's more important is winning this game so you avoid the potential dreadful factor of going 0-3 in this tough stretch, especially. And I'm still not taking them all of that seriously. But, I mean, after the Panthers beat the Packers, you have to consider them more of a threat in the NFC South race. Now, the Bucs still have a 2-game lead, and they haven't played Carolina yet. But I believe Carolina plays the Saints I think twice in the next 3 weeks or something like that. So that's definitely a way for Carolina getting back into it. So Bucs don't really have a lot of rest for the weary.
Yeah, no, I mean, this 3-game stretch, I'm trying to pull it up here because I know I wrote about it in the most recent NFC South update, but this being such a tough 3-game stretch, it is a 1.5-game lead over the Panthers right now. Again, they've got those 2 games, and so against the Panthers. So if you win those games, you're still putting yourself in a good spot. But over the next few weeks, the Bucs have 3 teams combined for 19-4 or 19-6 record. Yeah. And then, the Panthers have the 1-8 Saints this week, the 3-5 Falcons, who they beat 30-0 earlier this year. And then they have the 49ers and Rams. So it gets a little tougher for them there. But if this is as tough of a stretch as we're imagining it for the Bucs, if they go 1-2 or hopefully not 0-3, it will open the door and open the window for the Panthers to make some moves. If they beat the Saints and Falcons, not only does that improve their NFC South record, but they're getting right within striking distance, pretty close to when they're about to play the Bucs at the end of December.
Yeah, they definitely do make it that much more difficult. So we'll see. If the Bucs keep winning, then it becomes less of a problem for sure. Moving on to Bucs Basement with a $1.99 super chat. Thank you very much. Says, shame we didn't upgrade from Servassier Dennis. It isn't hard. So the Bucs didn't make a move at the trade deadline. I don't think it was necessarily shocking. And I'm not upset with the Bucs not making a move if it wasn't for the right guy. I do kind of push back, and I was saying this on yesterday's show. I do push back a little bit with, I understand like the Bucs want to harvest all of the draft picks they can, and they've done a fantastic job drafting players. So there is proof in the pudding with their methods. I'm not asking them to change their methods all of that much, but what I am saying is like, if they do have a legit proven talent, I don't know. Is it going to be the end of the world if they give up a second round pick for like a proven commodity? Like, I think sometimes the Bucs feel as if they are mortgaging all of their future by giving up a second and a third round pick or something like that. And to me, that's not always the case. But for this specifically, my computer went out for a second. For this specifically, I think with the Bucs, there wasn't the right player to go in and trade draft capital for to upgrade over Servassier Dennis. He's fluctuated. He's been up and down. I think the Bucs, unfortunately, are just going to have to live with it right now. But let's give him a little bit more time before we totally say, all right, the Bucs need a major upgrade.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. One, that they didn't really make a big move or a move. And two, I think it's kind of been, a lot of people have said it over the course of the week, like the Bucs like Servassier Dennis a lot more than insert person here does. Like, they believe in Servassier, and we've talked about it here. Like, going forward, like he's made plays as a blitzer. He's been good against the run. It's those 1 or 2 times a game where he has a lapse in coverage and he misses a tackle that turns into a 35-yard gain. And we know from his college tape, from what we've seen in practice, we know he can be better in pass coverage. So I don't know, obviously you're not going to give him, the trade deadline's passed, so there's not a lot you can do at this point. But I think they still, want to evaluate what they have there the rest of this season. And then, maybe in the offseason they make a decision and say, all right, he's not going to be the starter that we think he can be. And you kind of move on. But I'm not surprised that after an 8-game him putting together a resume over 8 games, I'm not surprised they didn't cut bait right there and upgrade over him, especially when it comes to what it would have taken to get a guy that they wanted.
It's definitely a topic that they're going to address in the off season versus going on currently for this team. So a couple comments as well. Chooch saying RIP Marshawn Kneeland, way too young. Yeah, just wanted to address that real quick. Super, super sad. Very just awful news. So sad. And wanted to send our condolences out to Marshawn Kneeland and his family today. Just unthinkable and awful and sad.
One of those things where, like, I obviously a couple of years ago we saw him at the Senior Bowl, and we all, I think pretty much all of us took a liking to him. And seeing that news this morning, my jaw dropped. And 24 years old is
and just scored a touchdown. In the Monday night game the other day.
Yeah, so, it's just unbelievably sad.
Yeah, and condolences out to him and his family and everyone. Tom with a comment says, I've been impressed with Elijah Roberts. Kid's got game. Bailey, I've been singing his praises a lot, but how do you feel about Elijah Roberts?
He's been everything that they could have asked for, and I think even a lot more so far. He really has very quickly become a very good player and a key player in this rotation on the defensive line. And I think, as good as he's been, he's only getting better. And I think we're going to start to see, the sack total get up a little bit more, and with the increased snaps he's getting, I don't know. It's been fun to watch. And what was he, a 5th round pick? And a guy who had, I believe, last year at SMU had the most pressures of anybody in college football, and you're seeing why. I know he's moving into the inside and making the adjustment and all that, but he's still put together a very strong start to his rookie season.
Big fan of him. I think he's going to end up being the replacement for Logan Hall. Can prove he can get to the quarterback. And it's so funny because, going back to training camp, all Todd Bowles kept saying about him is he just needs to figure out the fundamentals in stopping the run. And I kept thinking, if this dude's already getting after the passer, you can coach up stopping the run. Or you could find, screw it, throw in CJ Brewer in there to stop the run and then put him in on 3rd downs. I mean, he can be the replacement for Logan Hall, and then you're going to have Kalijah Cansey coming back next season. I've been very, very happy with what I've seen from Elijah Roberts. So definitely shout out to him and all he's done with his contributions. They've needed it since Kalijah Cansey has been out. Cameron Page with a $1.99 super chat. Thank you very much. Says, our run game feels too predictable, especially with tight end motion. I mean, they do go to 12 personnel sometimes with 2 tight ends with Cade Otton and Payne Durham. I just think they kind of like what we talked about before. They kind of go with the similar plays over and over. I want to see more pulling. I want to see more pitches. I liked as well when it was 90% of the snaps to 10% of the snaps for Rachaad White versus Sean Tucker against Detroit. I think everyone, even the coaches, admitted that was way too far. Really liked how they reined it in a lot more against the Saints, and I hope we see more of that too in this next game against New England.
Yeah, I hope so. And I think another one that I didn't mention earlier, and I don't think maybe we're talking enough just in general about is, as much of it was as it was a tell when Keefe would come onto the field as, the Bucs are going to run the ball. Yeah. I mean, I think they miss him quite a bit, with his injury. And I think that, isn't the number one factor of why the run game isn't where it was last year. But I think that has to probably play a role as well.
Fullbacks have a role in today's NFL. I know he's technically a tight end, but he line up at the fullback position. Johnny Cash, thank you for this $4.99 super chat. Says Christian Gonzalez and Tez Johnson were former teammates going back to Oregon. That should be fun to watch. Yeah, that's very cool. We actually had 2 weeks ago with Bucs Saints, Tez Johnson and Kool-Aid McKinstry were high school teammates, and now we're talking about college teammates. And when Tez went up against his high school teammate, he ended up leading the Bucs in receiving yards. So hopefully that's a similar case where the Bucs win, the defense doesn't allow any points, and the Bucs improve their record. So that would be very cool. But Tez Johnson, he's exciting on the mic, no doubt about it. But he's not that he's overhyping himself, but he has put he obviously can talk the talk. He's been walking the walk the past couple games with more of an expanded role.
Yeah, and that's why it's fun to see him do well, because he's such a fun personality, and the more we get to hear from him, and the more he can talk about all of his contributions, the happier I am. So it's definitely a lot of fun.
I also respect. I forgot when he said this, but he said he's only going to do the touchdowns the backflips on touchdowns at home at Raymond James Stadium. Now, I also think there is context. When he scored against the Lions, they were losing, and it's not really a time to do a backflip in that circumstance. But hopefully, get to see some backflips on Sunday at Raymond James Stadium. The injury report came out a little bit ago, so we're going to get to that in just a moment. But first, let's talk about the official injury report sponsor, PewterReport.com. Jorgensen Law.
Welcome to Jorgensen Law, PA, where our family's legacy drives us to fight for your rights. Specializing in personal injury, workers' compensation, and Social Security, we're committed to winning for you. No fees unless we succeed. Trust in our family to help yours. Let's achieve justice together.
That's right, Jorgensen Law. You can find them out in St. Petersburg. They are the champions of the injured and disabled. You can get a free case evaluation and no fees until they win your case. If you team up with Jorgensen Law, you can call them at 727-347-7733. That is 727-347-7733. They are the official law firm of Pewter Report and pewterreport.com. They will be sponsoring every injury report that we put out on pewterreport.com. They'll sponsor, obviously, when we talk about it on the show. And any injury-related story will be brought to you by Jorgensen Law. So check out how they can help you. They are the champions of the injured and disabled with their offices out in St. Petersburg. So looking at the injury report for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, pretty much status quo. Chris Godwin, Bucky Irving, Hassan Reddick, Marquise Watts are all out once again, did not practice. Ben Bredesen is a new addition. He was limited with a shoulder injury. Luke Gedeke was limited again. And then Levante David, Luke Haggard, Baker Mayfield, Zion McCollum, Jacob Parrish, all full for practice. And then for the Patriots, Keyshawn Boutte did not practice. Christian Ellis did not practice. Ramondre Stevenson also out. Garrett Bradbury, Joshua Farmer, and Marte Mapu was limited. And Christian Gonzalez, they say removed. I assume they mean he was removed from the concussion protocol, not removed from practice. But it looks like Christian Gonzalez, the teammate at Oregon of Tez Johnson, looks like he's going to be good to go for this game. Bailey, kind of anticlimactic, really. With Luke Gedeke coming back, that's great. But just all of the excitement about Bucky possibly coming back, Chris Godwin Jr. possibly coming back, we really got nothing out of it. Luke Gedeke, that's a fantastic upgrade, much needed for this team. But I don't know. Going into tomorrow's practice, there's not going to be too much to be looking for unless one of those players randomly pop up, or maybe Marquise Watts does, but he's more of a special teams guy.
Yeah, it would take one of those like random. It was a couple of weeks ago with I think the Lions game where out of nowhere we thought, Emeka Egbuka's not playing, and then I think he had a limited practice, and they're like, oh, maybe he's in play, could be questionable. So you hope maybe one of those guys is, but again, you don't want to rush those guys back. I think the more intriguing things are all on the Patriots side of things, and that Christian Ellis not practicing, their linebacker.
Yeah,
is a big deal. Keyshawn Boutte, I don't think Keyshawn's going to play. I know he suffered a hamstring injury against the Falcons last week, and he had said earlier this week that he's going to try to make it back for Tampa, but I don't believe they'll rush him back that quickly. So that's their number 2 receiver right now. And then Ramondre Stevenson, obviously, they're running back along with Travion Henderson. That's a crucial one too. So yeah, a few key ones to keep an eye on for Friday for them.
Yeah, I had read that the Patriots were kind of looking for another running back at the trade deadline, based on that injury with Stevenson. And then that Patriots-Falcons game, once Boutte went out of the game, they really stalled on the offensive side. Now, obviously, Stephon Diggs is a big-time receiver and great, but as we've seen with the Bucs and other teams, you need more than one weapon in this league to truly move the ball down the field. Want to get to this comment from Kyle Dugan, who's a Pewter Report YouTube channel member. Thank you, Dukes. Says, Bucs won't be able to run it, but Baker is going to sling it all over the field. Geno Smith and Tua threw for 300-plus yards against the Pats, and Michael Penix Jr., I think that was on purpose. Michael Penix Jr. was very effective last week to Drake London. There's no doubt about it. The Falcons found something against that Patriots defense, which is a really good defense, but we're talking about a Falcons team that is so all over the place, going on the road to New England and really made it tough. We talked a lot about the Bucs offense against the Patriots defense, but Bailey, maybe what's one thing that sticks out to you in terms of the matchup, things you're kind of intrigued to watch for when it comes to the Bucs defense lining up against Drake May and the Patriots offense?
I think the one thing and the big thing probably to give the Bucs some hope against, Drake May's playing really well. I think he's at 17 touchdowns, 4 picks, but he's been sacked 34 times this year and almost an average of 4 a game. And I think the Bucs are starting to figure it out a little bit in terms of their pass rush. In the last several weeks, they've been able to get after the quarterback, and I think if they can kind of get him off balance and kind of panicking a little bit early on, I think that could be huge. And it's interesting with Booty being out and how their offense kind of stalled with that absence, because it is like Stephon Diggs is their leading receiver right now, and then beyond those two, it's kind of, Hunter Henry, their tight end, is kind of not flashy or anything, but he's a solid tight end. He'll probably become a bigger factor in this game. But Mac Hollins is another receiver they don't have a ton of depth at receiver, and they do have a lot of guys who have had to step up and make plays at different times, but no one that you would say necessarily scares you. And so I think the path forward for this game, for the Bucs is their defense kind of putting in some of the dirty work and limiting. Getting to Drake May, limiting him, and maybe holding the Patriots to 16, 17 points, and then hoping that the offense can kind of do the rest.
The Patriots are obviously a really good team. They're 6-2. They beat Buffalo, who the Bucs are going to see next week in Buffalo. But I don't know. Again, just watching that game, I was like, all right, the Bucs are their defense is going to be able to get to Drake May because of the offensive line, as you mentioned. And I think this game matches up quite well for Tampa Bay because Drake May, he's looked really good. He likes throwing that deep ball. He has excellent touch on that deep ball, but the Bucs don't really allow those big splash plays. Now, Jackson Smith and Jigba did, but he's been doing that against every team. And that wasn't just an isolated incident against the Bucs. The strength of this defense, as great as it's been getting to the QB, the strength of this defense has been the secondary, which is kind of crazy to say when you look at what happened last year, but it's clearly been the case for the team this year. So I think that plays right into the hands of the Bucs. I look at this game and say, if the Bucs just play their game, they should win. Now, obviously, like turnovers and stuff are a great equalizer, but what Drake May likes to do is exactly what Tampa Bay takes away. So to me, Hunter Henry is probably my biggest concern because we've spent a lot of this year talking about how running backs have completely gashed the Bucs linebackers. But I have a feeling it might be the tight ends in that situation in this game. So we shall see. It's something I definitely will consider as well when it comes to making my quick picks over at Splash Sports. Splash Sports is the official daily fantasy sports app of PewterReport.com. You can join over 2.5 million people playing on Splash Sports, the home for Survivor, Pick'em, and Quick Picks. Whether you want to create your own contest with friends or take a shot at life-changing prize pools, Splash Sports has you covered. They have contests and prizes going on every single week. It's not just a season-long thing. I did Pick'ems last week for week 10 of the NFL season. They'll have one this week. They have different touchdown survivor pools and regular survivor pools. So a ton of great different options you can have over at Splash Sports. Download the QR code on the screen and download the app with that QR code and start making those quick picks for Splash Sports. They give you the best odds and the best boosts in all of daily fantasy sports. And you can turn $20 into $1,000 with the best multipliers around. Download the Splash Sports app today. Bailey, I'm not going to ask for a prediction because we'll be able to read that on the Pewter preview tomorrow. It always comes out on Friday when the Bucs play on Sunday. I'm curious, though. We're both big fans of Part of My Take over on Barstool Sports. Shout out Big Cat, PFT, Hank, Zach, Memes, Max, Pug. Who do you think is going to do the read for the fastest 2 minutes? Will it be Zach or will it be the handsome one, Hen Easy?
I think it depends on who wins, or maybe they split it. They might split it down the middle. Because I think they might have done that a couple weeks back with the Eagles with Max and Zach. But yeah, I think if it's a big, it might be Hank though, because if it's a big Drake May game, they might give it to him. And if Drake May doesn't have a good game, they might want to rub it in a little bit and have him do it. So it'll be interesting.
I can see them each doing it. I feel like they've done that before where it's like they do because like the Jets and the Patriots play each other twice a season. Yeah. I feel like you got like Memes version of it and then Hank's version of it and so forth. But yeah, Zach, has been fun listening to him do the Bucs reviews and everything like that. By the way, everybody. Oh, actually, before we do some ads, let's give a shout out to all of our Pewter Platinum members. Thank you so much, each and every one of you, for being a Pewter Platinum member. So thank you to Scott Federico, Scotty J, Rachel Gordon, Noah Parr, Dave Anderson, Eric McMillan, Hezo813, Ash Fishpool, Joel Elrican, Sam, John Dale Morris, Zach Brannigan, RP89, Connor For Reals, Kevin Thomas, Mario Thomas, Leighton Carter, Brandon Riley, The Guy Is Gifted, Alec Bickler, Nick Dubuque, Dominic Tarantino, HK Bucks, The Real Maverick, Brayon Pinkney, Brian Shucker, Black Gold 1999, Steven Zool, King James 813, Brian Green, Henry Gigante, Robert Machin, and Todd Pittner. Thank you so much to each and every one of you for your support at pewterreport.com, for being a Pewter Platinum member. We're going to have a Pewter Insider for our Pewter Platinum members and Premier members. That will be at 1:30 tomorrow, myself and SR. It's an exclusive show for Pewter Platinum and Premier members. We're going to be talking about, can the Bucs defense stay hot after the bye? We'll also have the latest injury news, who's in and who's out for this next Bucs game, a home game for Tampa Bay. We'll also have the Pewter pregame show coming up at 9 o'clock a.m. on Sunday, the day of the game. Myself and Scott previewing Bucs Patriots, looking at all the biggest matchups and storylines in it. And then at 1 o'clock, while Scott and Bailey and Sly will be at Raymond James Stadium, I will be in my office doing the Pewter Game Day show alongside Daniel Morales. Will give play-by-play, reactions, analysis, input, insight, all of that fun stuff about Bucs versus Patriots. We love rocking and rolling with our Bucs fans and Pewter people, so we keep it super interactive the whole time as well. So that'll be at 1 o'clock for Bucs Patriots, the Bucs home game. And then after, we'll have a Pewter post-game show recapping what is hopefully a win for Tampa Bay. Also, if you're not already doing so, please make sure you're following us on all of our social media, on X, Facebook, and Instagram. We're at Pewter Report. Our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV. Please like and subscribe. Leave a comment on this video what you think is going to happen in the game. Feel free to put a score prediction as well. That's going to do it for us on today's show. For Bailey Adams, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks, everybody, for watching. We will see you soon for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. That's how ball is done. Out.